Bueno, buen día a todos. Hoy estamos con una entrevista muy especial, una persona que es muy significativa para toda la comunidad del Michael y de la OGA, que es Sister Patricia, Patricia Carney. Vamos a tratar de hacerla en inglés, voy a hacer mi mejor esfuerzo, pero me pone un poco nerviosa porque hace rato que no estoy hablando en inglés, pero si no ya quedamos con Sister que la vamos a hacer en un Spanglish. ¿Eh? Así que bueno, ahora sí, let's see how it goes in English. And I think most people know that this year Olga is turning 90 years old, and next year Michael Ham will be turning 100 years. So it's a very special occasion. Those are two important milestones, and that's why we thought it would be so interesting to interview you, Sister Patricia. And you know,
Thank you.
I was thinking these days what to ask you during the time we'll be sharing together. And I realized I don't know much about the person, although you've been my headmistress during all of the secondary school and I think part of my primary school as well. And therefore, I would like you to tell us something about yourself, your story, your family, your beginnings.
Okay, so you called me Patricia Carney.
Mhm.
The only people when I was at home, the only people who ever called me Patricia were the parish priest and my headmistress,
Okay,
usually when I was in trouble. But she always called me by my full name. Otherwise, I was always Pat.
great.
And it was only when I was thinking about this. And it was different when I was in Argentina because eventually I ended up being Hermana Patricia. And Patricia, my mother used to say, when I was growing up, if I was going to be a tomboy, I would be Pat. And if I was very refined and ladylike, I would be Patricia. And that was the way
Oh,
she would like it to be pronounced. And although normally in English it's Patricia. But she would like it to be Patricia. So in the end, I I was you called me what my mother would have liked me to be called,
oh, that's
Patricia.
great. So you ended up being
So,
a refined lady.
but I'm Pat. To everybody else, I'm Pat, and I'm the eldest of seven children. Uh, uh, Three boys come after me, then two girls, and then after 5 years, another boy. So
Okay.
I'm the eldest of seven, and we all grew up in the same area. We were always in the same parish. So although we moved house, we were always in the same area. So we are a very well-known family in our area, and we're a very close-knit family. The first six of us were born in under 9 years, and there are no twins there. So that was we were about a year and a half between each one, uh, and so while we don't live in one another's pockets, we always know that the family is there. If ever you need anything, somebody's going to be there to help you. And and for me, that and having stayed in the same area is what gave me a very a very stable and a very firm foundation that I was then able to build my life on. I am eternally grateful to my parents for that and my siblings.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
very nice. And can you tell us when did you decide to go to the Passionist
To be a
congregation?
nun,
Yeah, to be an
to be a
nun.
nun.
And how? Yeah, and the Passionist congregation was present in your area, or how did you get in touch with it?
No, okay. In the primary school, I went to the parish school, and the secondary school, I went to a Passionist school. The sisters were teaching in Mount St. Joseph as they teach in Michaelham. So I think basically it would be the example of the teachers, the example of the sisters. And it wasn't as though I felt, oh, I don't know, I wasn't sure. I just felt it was something I needed to do. But I was also scared stiff because I was scared that it wouldn't be the right thing. And I did not want to go and enter the convent and then have to come back out again.
Okay.
I did not want that. So much so that we used to go to the chapel, much as you do in Michaelham. The chapel was always open at lunchtime. And so I would go to the chapel when I was really seriously thinking of it. And I used to go and I say, listen, Lord, I don't know whether this is right or not. And if it's not right, well, just please make something happen so I can't do it.
Okay.
And, no, and nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
So nothing
Okay.
happened. So I decided at least I would try it. So
How
I
old
felt
were you when you took the
when
decision?
I
When
entered
you made yeah.
17,
Oh, great.
17, I was still in school.
Wow.
I
And
was
what
still
did
in
your
school.
parents say? Because you were the eldest one, so I think it
Yeah,
must have been shocking
yeah.
for them.
Well, my mother, when my mother was the first person I told, and she said to me, and I think she was right. I was lucky it worked out for me. But she said, okay, but you're too young. You haven't lived. You don't know what you're giving up. But she said, it's your life. And if that's what you want to do, you go with my blessing.
Wow.
My father was absolutely delighted. He loved the idea. And he eventually, somewhere, he found a poem, I'm the daddy of a nun. And he
Okay.
was, I'm the daddy of a nun.
And what
So
about your
he was
siblings?
delighted. My siblings, well, they didn't expect it, certainly. They didn't expect it. Um, but they all supported me. They all supported me. And yeah,
Oh,
it
that's
was
nice.
difficult because, yeah.
And so at 17, you made the decision, and then you came to Argentina. I have my machete here.
Yeah,
Um, so you came to Argentina at the age of 28, right?
28.
Quite
Yeah,
young
because,
also.
well, what had happened was I had I had 6 months as a postulant, 2 years as a novice, and then I trained, and then I taught in a primary school in Bradford, and then I was asked to come to Argentina. So when I came to Argentina, I was a professor sister with a history degree and a college degree.
Oh, great. And it must have been a shock for you, that decision, or not?
Well, it, no, it wasn't. It was a surprise. I was asked to go, but I just said yes, I'll go. Uh, And I didn't know anything about Argentina at all. I had no notion. I didn't know what I was going to expect, but I got a 3 weeks holiday on the boat. I came over on the boat. We came by boat on the Royal Mail boat, and a whole other experience for me too. And actually, there was a past pupil on that boat.
Really?
Augustina Pitt was actually on that boat that I came on, the
Wow.
Alanza, in
And it was your
1964.
first time overseas,
Yes,
coming to Argentina?
my first time outside of England.
Wow. So, and what can you tell us? Because as you have just said, a faraway country, different culture, different way of life. What did you expect? Or maybe to find
Well, I
Indians,
didn't
or
really.
what
I
was
did. I didn't know what to expect. That was the whole problem. I didn't know what to expect. And then little things. I remember one time I'd only been there a couple of days, and two former past pupils came. I remember one of them. One of them was called um, Ana Justa del Campo.
Uh-huh.
Ana Justa del Campo, one of the earliest students of my clan. She and a friend of hers came, and I was on door duty. I opened the door, let them in, gave them Coca-Cola, and then when I came down, what was almost like an international incident, because I came in and the superior said to me, "But you given them Coca-Cola with no ice?"
Ah,
And I thought, well, Coca-Cola. I mean, it never even occurred to me to put ice in Coca-Cola. I mean, they were lucky I gave them a drink, a cold drink. But probably I would have offered them a cup of tea, but they asked for cold. So there were just little things like that. Um, and I remember it never even occurred to me. Now, all right, I know now it's Argentina I'm talking about. It never occurred to me that a girl, would tell me a lie. And so when one day Sister Cyprian told me that the Royal Shakespeare Company were coming in and to let out the girls who had tickets after lunch, they would go. So I had this famous B4 that was the first class I had there. And I let them out, the ones. And the next thing I see is Sister Cyprian coming back with three of them who had no tickets, but had told me what I thought was a very plausible story, that yes, well, her aunt, Patricia Mascarena's aunt, was going to meet them in town, and she had the tickets because they'd forgotten to bring them. Of course, Cyprian knew that they were just getting a free afternoon.
Okay.
And I remember then saying to Sister Anna Aguirre's sister Marcella, I said, but they told me a lie. And she said,
You're
"Ah,
in
no, sister.
Argentina.
No, no," she said.
No.
No, she said, "No, that's not a lie, sister. That's viveza criolla."
Claro.
Viveza criolla. Yeah, okay. So there were things like that that were and the energy that you people, the time that you people put in making your machetes for your tests.
You tell me, I spent the whole weekend with this.
I couldn't that written on your thighs, on your arms, on your
Yeah.
set squares.
And, I was remembering the other day because this thing that they said, um, I had Sister Patricia for most of my time at Michael Ham. And I remember, for example, seeing you playing tennis against the wall in the quinta with your usual clothes, the, how do you call
And
the
trainers
fashionista? What?
and trainers. Well, the habit we had by habit.
No, but when I was at school, you already wore clothes, not a habit.
Yeah,
But
but
you,
we wore what was called a religious dress.
yeah, that's it.
A
But
religious
you had a
dress.
Nike sneakers. I remember you were playing with those. But that's almost, I think, the only anecdote I had of you more as a person. And the thing is, you after all, you spent 32 years here at Michaelham, right? First as
Yeah.
a teacher, then as a headmistress. So I think you got quite fond of the country, of the school. Um, can you tell us a little bit about maybe what were your biggest, um, let's say, I lost it. Excuse me. Your biggest challenges, your achievements, or maybe your proudest moments here at school, and maybe also joys and sorrows that marked your time here at Michaelham.
Well, I suppose in in one way, what came to be one of the biggest challenges started off when, although I had a degree when I came and I'd finished everything, um, I had to get an Argentinian degree if I
Okay.
wanted to teach. If I wanted to teach official on the official side in the Argentinian curriculum. So I went down to Salvador. I enrolled in Salvador. First of all, then they told me that I hadn't finished my secondary school education because I hadn't got Argentine history or
Ah,
geography or Spanish or whatever, an instrucción cívica. But the University of Salvador said I could do that one by one, as long as I had it finished by the time I got the degree. So
okay.
that was all right. So for the girls, this was great. I had to go up to Agustin Alvarez, the Colegio Nacional at the top of Alcina, uh, once a year to do each of these subjects libre. Yeah.
Okay.
So the girls thought this was great. They said, "Sister, you never say I don't know." Anyway, that's another story. I went down to Salvador, and I think there, as far as I was concerned, it opened my eyes to another sector of Argentina.
Okay.
Argentina that was different from the Argentina I knew from teaching in school.
Okay.
Now, I suppose in one way, Olga should have opened my eyes to that. But when I saw this other side of Argentina, I began to say to myself, well, what am I doing in Michael Ham?
I'm
Because
sorry.
these,
And what did you see there?
I saw, I got in touch, I was studying with other people in
Hmm.
Salvador. So what I was seeing was the middle class. I saw these girls who were teachers. They were already working as teachers, much as many of you people did, as my actors, while you were studying. So they were teaching, they were studying, and they came from a, a section, a section of society which was lower than the people I was coming into contact with in Michaelham. And I think there's a whole other Argentina out there that I'm completely unaware of. And so if I'm going to stay here in Michaelham, I need to do something to make the girls in school aware of this other Argentina that
Okay.
exists. And 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 that would be my reason for being there in part. And I started to try to do that. But all I was getting was I was making the girls who were 16, 17 feel guilty for being born into the level of society they were being born into. I said, well, this isn't right either because that's not right. It's where they are. It's what they do with where they are. And and that was when I asked. That was when I asked to be changed. And it was only when I was thinking about this that you know what you people are doing in Oga should have alerted me to the fact that yes, you were out there and you're already doing that. The past pupils were doing it. But anyway, um, so then I asked to be changed. And I was moved. I'd been 10 years in school at this stage, and I went to Moreno. And for 3 years, I was in the barrio on the outskirts of Moreno, and I loved it. I really did. I loved it. They were poor. They were very poor. I was going out to visit people in their homes. I was working with youth. I was teaching people who couldn't read or write how to read
Hmm.
and write. I loved it. But at the end of 3 years, they needed a new headmistress for secondary school because Sister Mary Magdalene wasn't well enough to continue being head. And they asked me to go back.
Okay.
I didn't want to go,
You wanted to
but
stay in Moreno.
I didn't want to go. But I went back. And it was somehow all that leads me to what you were saying there. What was my biggest achievement?
Yeah.
And I think my biggest achievement is getting out this book, the Ideario Pedagógico,
Ah, okay.
because shortly after I went back, we have four schools. The congregation has four schools in South America, three in Chile and one in Argentina. And so we formed together, we formed the head of the head sister of each school with a catechist, a teacher, and a parent. And there was a priest joined us, and Cecilia Gandola
Oh,
was
yes.
on that committee, and so was Annie Inés Iturralde. And I think that the parent was, I think she was called Beatriz, but I can't remember her surname. And we got together as South Americans to put together the passionist principles of education in, in general. And once we had done that, we then came back to our own schools and we applied those policies to our own school because each school was different. And we worked on that, but we worked on it with everybody. Wasn't just this group kind of, with Cecilia and Annie Nathan. We worked with all the teachers, we worked with all the girls, and not just all the teachers, but everybody, even Luis, Antonio,
Oh, yes.
everybody, everybody
The whole
came to us with
community.
the whole community. We worked as a community, and we got together. We put this ideario together, And then we had to spread it. We had to bring the parents in as well. And so I got the parents together in groups in their class groups and said, all right, you've got two sections of each year, A and B. So make groups of four couples or not more than 6 or 8 people. Meet in your own homes and go through this and work it. And we worked out worksheets, and I used to go down to those, and I used to take it in turn and go around to each one. And we worked it with the teachers, we worked with the pupils, and I remember Mariana Gallagher was the head girl, uh, and she gave a talk to the whole secondary school on what it means in your position to be salt, light, and yeast. And I remember meeting her after that talk that she gave. And I know exactly where we were, just as crossing the red patio. I'd crossed the red patio. She'd come up from the secondary school. We met at the steps there. I said, Mariana, that was absolutely wonderful. I could not have done that as well myself. It was just wonderful. But we were a whole community working together. And then we changed the whole of the syllabus. We had to keep the curriculum, the Argentinian curriculum,
Mhm.
like that, but we adapted it in such a way from 5th grade up. And in the secondary school, that is when we put into the timetable community service.
Yeah, I remember that.
And yeah, we had community service on the Friday afternoon. This is what you start, and we started in the first year, and then
Yeah,
it went first year
yeah.
and second year, and you got somewhere that needed help. You planned what you were going to do. You went out and did
Yes,
it,
I
and then the
perfectly
following
remember.
week
Yes.
you evaluated it. Yeah,
Mm.
and that was how it all started. And for me, I remember after I'd left, I went back. It must have been possibly for the 75th anniversary. I don't know, but I know I went back. And there was a kermesse on that afternoon. And I went into the hall downstairs, the salon, and everybody, it was a hive of activity. They were getting ready for this kermesse that was going to set up. And I walked in and I said, the big round table that used to be in the center was over by the fireplace. I thought, I don't know one woman on that table. That's very strange. On that table. And I went over, and what I discovered was that it was a group of women from Vivregis.
Okay.
They were the women from the barrio where the children with their parents, because parents were involved in this, as you will know,
Mhm.
because you lived through it. Parents went out with their children to the barrios or wherever they were going. They had taught these women how to buy in bulk, and they had bought dolls, they had bought material, and for that kermesse, they had dressed those dolls in the school uniform, and that's what they were selling. And when I saw those women from Vivregis sitting in the salon of the Grand Michael Ham and feeling completely at home in this wonderful building, I just said, it's worked.
Mission accomplished.
It's worked.
Yeah, very nice. So that would be
I'll never
your
forget. I'll never forget that moment. Ever.
no. Very nice. It's very nice. Um, and so that would be yeah, your proudest
Yeah,
achievement.
it would. Yeah, it
Yeah.
would. Yeah, I think it would.
And
Yeah.
you left Argentina exactly when?
Well, I suppose I don't know. When did I leave again? I went on a sabbatical in 1963, I think, or 64. Came back in 64. Um, I, I get my dates mixed up. Because I left school I left school after the sabbatical, but I didn't leave Argentina. So I came back from my sabbatical in 1994 and I left school and I lived in the house in Alcina. And that's when I started having prayer groups. And that's what I did. I had prayer groups. I lived there in Alcina for another 2 years. And then I decided that I was going to leave Argentina. And I suppose uh, I think really I couldn't see myself dying in Argentina.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah. And so and in a way, my sabbatical I'd had a sabbatical, and my sabbatical was in England. And I think possibly then looking back, part of having that sabbatical as I was uh, finishing school, that's right, I taught for Angelica, the provincial, and said I was thinking of leaving school, and that I was telling her because she needed to find a new headmistress, and 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 I would give her time to do that. And I think then I wanted a sabbatical. And I think possibly the sabbatical was looking to see could I could I make a life for myself back here in Argentina, back here
In
in
England.
England, that I needed to come back when I still had some life left in me and I could still reinsert myself. And I think to some extent, we were talking about culture shocks at the beginning. I think I had more culture shocks coming back to England because I knew what I'd left behind. So I knew more I thought I was going to find when I came back. But the England I came back to was not the
Was not
England
the
I
same,
had
of
left.
course. Yeah.
No, so I had I had more culture shocks coming back to England than I had going across to Argentina in
Oh,
the first
really?
place. Yeah, yeah,
Wow,
yes,
that's interesting.
yeah,
No, I think I have something to show you that, let me see. Hold on 1 second.
yeah,
¿Puedo sacar la muñeca? ¿Cómo? Look, what you,
yeah, yes. What I was talking
this
about.
is, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
why I
right. Yeah,
remembered we had one here in
we
the,
had one. That's right.
yeah,
Yes,
so here it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Your accomplishment. Um, so it was a greatest shock to go back. That's interesting, yeah. Well, you've spent almost a lifetime here, 32 years.
Yeah, I did. I did. I
That's
spent
quite a long time.
32 years there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And sister, I wanted to ask you, what would you highlight about yoga? Because you always were quite close to us. And in fact, I have an anecdote from Paula Correa.
Go on.
You remember her, of course.
I do
And
remember Paula. Yeah,
yeah,
sweet. Yeah, yeah.
she told me the
Paula.
other day that some years ago, um, back ago at Olga, we didn't know how much to charge for the monthly fee. So Paula went and asked you, and you gave an answer that showed your practical nature. And you said, it's easy. You have to charge the equivalent to 1 kilo of ice cream, but not just any ice cream. It must be Fredo. And that benchmark is still working nowadays, you know.
Oh dear, I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, when we were talking earlier about what I was feeling about, was I in the right place in Michaelham, that you people were going to get an education, whether I was there or not. Uh, and I, it's only when I was thinking about that, I thought, well, since you started, since August started, 90 years ago, you've had Vija Martelli, you've been doing social work. You've been aware of the people who didn't have anything, and you've gone out to do what you could where you could. And I think you've done wonderful work, and I continue to do wonderful work. But I have some kind of an idea that at some stage, and I think Lizzie Ryan was probably the head of it in those days. And she came to Sister Cyprian, and it was after the borders finished. And that was when you asked if you could could have a place in school. And that's when you came to occupy the top floor. And Tuesdays used to be Olga's day for that. You always knew there was somebody upstairs in Olga
Yeah, of
on
course, yeah.
Tuesdays. And so for me, looking back, that was a very important step forward, because if you ask me what is the thing that for me is most important for Olga, it is your presence in school, because I think presence is something which is so important, and the fact that you are actually physically present in school means that you're able to connect with people. You can have you have the 50 years upstairs for their lunch. You bring, and your presence is noticed, and what you do is noticed, and that is so important, because I mean, to me, it is absolutely, it's incredible that Olga has flourished, is still alive 90 years later. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it really is. And the work you have done and the way it has expanded is really, it is, well, it's a credit to every single one of you. It really is. It's a credit.
Thank you very much. And this year we have some news. We have, bueno, Villa Martelli, of course. Then we have Santa Gema, Centro Santa Gema in Tigre, Rincón de Milvar.
Indeed.
And we have a project of a primary school in Tigre as
Wow.
well. So that's a big challenge we're facing now. And well, it's very challenging, of course, but we are proud of it and proud of our story, of course. But as I said before, these are years of celebrations and anniversaries. And I think those are always good opportunities to look back at our history and everything we've experienced, but also to dream of the future. And of course, to enjoy and celebrate the present. And in that context, I would like you to, if you can share with us, what would you like to pass on to the Michael Ham community today?
I think you have summed it up very well in that, because you started with who I was as a person, and a family, and where I came from, and what happened along the line. You talked about the past and celebrate the past and celebrate memories, and we all have to do that. And it's only as we look back that we can see a pattern. I've enjoyed looking back and over these memories. It makes me realize what a wonderful life I have had. I really have had a wonderful life. Wasn't always easy. There were ups and downs, and there are ups and downs in everybody's life. And I think that is what makes us who we are. And but I think that as I look back on my life in Michael, um, what stands out for me is, you're going to smile now, is this famous word, spirit.
Yes.
Nobody can tell you what it is. Nobody can define it. Nobody can describe it. But we all know what we're talking about when we talk about el spirit del Michael. And all I can say is, please do whatever it takes to keep that spirit alive. I don't know where it comes from. I think it's tied up with the passionist charism. I think it's tied up with love being at the heart of everything. It's tied up with always being there. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you meet somebody, did you go to Michael?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter what year you went to Michael. It doesn't matter what color you were.
It
Although
does.
that
Of
does
course it
matter.
does.
It
No,
does. It
sister,
does
it
matter.
does. It does. It does
Yeah.
matter a lot.
it does matter a lot. But the fact that you're yellow and I'm red doesn't make any difference. You're still
Mhm.
Michael, and Michael is bigger than that.
Yeah, of
So the
course.
color is yes, but keep the spirit alive because that is what has made and what makes Michael what it is, and it makes you who you are. And being with other people, I remember when I don't know why it comes back to me now, but when I was making my farewell speech in Michaelham at the Mass, and I said, I will take your music with me wherever I go, and you will take mine, because it is true. If I have done a lot to make you who you are, you have done so much more to make me who I am. And I think that whole idea of how we form one another is what
Interconnectedness,
makes,
right?
yeah, that is what makes Ed Michael what it is.
Oh, thank you
So,
so much. It's
so, right,
very
so I
nice.
think it's, yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, thank you. And well, it's been quite moving, this interview. I'm so glad we could make it.
So
And
am I.
well, it's been really a pleasure for me
And
to
it
have
has
this
been
conversation.
equally has been a pleasure for me.
So,
And
is there, I don't know if you want to share anything else, or maybe, I don't know, close the interview.
there's one story. This is
Yeah.
this really belongs to earlier on when you were talking about the things that surprised me. One of the to me one of the craziest things I was ever asked to do in Michaelham was to teach Latin. I wasn't qualified to teach Latin. To
Okay.
teach Latin, to teach Latin through English to girls who spoke Spanish, and
Okay.
I didn't know a word of Spanish. So this was B1. This was B1, and it was a class I'd had here. And and I remember one of the things I did. It was a big class. We're in one of the rooms off the central hall, and it was so big that the back row was solid. So the people from the back row had to climb out over the desk to get out. So I had a brilliant idea that they would have a vocabulary test every Monday or every second Monday. They would have a vocabulary test, and so I would give them this vocabulary test. There was one girl in that class, and Sharon Duggan. And Sharon was a very intelligent girl, and she was a weekly boarder, so when we still had boarders. And I called her one day and I said, Sharon, you could do a lot better at your Latin vocabulary test. And she looked at me. And I'm telling you this because I could not believe that a girl of 13 would have such maturity. She looked at me and she said, Sister, there are more important things to do on a weekend than learn Latin verbs and Latin nouns when you've been away from your family all week.
Oh, there you
And
go.
she said it, and I just looked at her and I said, I couldn't believe that this 13-year-old girl would would have the courage to challenge me and to tell me what I should have known anyway.
Yeah,
You
of course.
know, she was right.
Yes.
And I just looked at her and I said, You're right, Sharon. Thank you. But I've never forgotten it. I've never forgotten it. And
Wow.
and in a way that's tied up with what I was saying about and Michael. The fact that she felt able to do that and the way we help one another. She at 13, where did she get the courage from? I don't think I could
And
have done
you,
it when I was
yeah,
13.
talking like that to the monja. How
Yeah,
come?
I said, yeah,
Right?
la monja. Yeah,
Claro, a la monja. A
la
Patricia, Sister
monja.
Patricia. Now that I know that your mother said that thing about
Yeah.
Patricia, I will
And
tell
that
you
was
Sister Patricia, not Patricia.
and that and that class, they were the ones who called me La Monja. They
Ah,
started it,
okay.
La Monja.
La monja.
Yeah, Elena Bicu was in that class, and she still calls me La Monja.
With respect, of course.
Yeah, with respect. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
of course.
yeah.
So,
Right.
sister, it's been so nice talking to you. I would like to close up this session in Spanish.
Yeah,
So, as we started
that's
in
fine.
Spanish as well. Eh, y me gustaría, bueno, por empezar, agradecerte el tiempo. Para mí fue un enorme placer compartir este rato, recordar tiempos pasados y tan lindos. Y espero que todas las que nos estén escuchando también disfruten de esta charla. Eh, y bueno, nada, invitarlas a que nos sigan acompañando en estas conversaciones que tenemos en la boga, que este año, como había dicho al principio, con la excusa de los 90 años, si quieren, vamos a ir entrevistando personas que han sido tan significativas como Sister Patricia para la comunidad del Michael. Así que bueno, te mando un beso muy grande. De nuevo, muchísimas gracias por tu tiempo y la verdad que fue un placer esta charla.
Y para mí también,
Muchas
para
gracias.
mí también.
Bueno, beso grande
Bueno,
y un
beso
cariño para
grande
todas.
y cariños para ustedes también. Chao.